Yeah.
But I think they.
Nikki looks like she's frozen.
Oh, yeah.
So much for tuning in to Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where true health is wealth. It's Monday night, and what is Monday night? Monday night is Couch Conversations with the Doctors. So we thank each and every one of you for being here on this evening with us. So remember to share, share, share. Invite all of your friends to come by. Remember this is for information purposes only, but we are here to share that health is wealth and have that great interactive conversation with you. So to our Facebook, Instagram, and all of our social media family, thank you guys so much for being here. I see that Sister Bonnie has stopped by and she is saying good evening to everyone and good evening to all. We're going to go around the panel as we always do, and we're going to introduce each and every person that is here. So I'm going to start with my coworker. I see you, Nellie King. I see you as you are stopping in with us on today, saying good evening to everybody, saying good evening. So thank you so much. Remember to share, 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 because it is Monday night and it's Couch Conversations with the Doctors. I'm going to start with those interviews with my very own coworker who has left us and went to Sun and Fun, but he is still interacting with us via technology, and that's our very own Douglas Graham, who's going to bring us back boxes and boxes of stuff when he gets back here. So Doug, introduce yourself to everyone.
Thank you, Nikki. I hope you like oranges. I'm a retired physician. I worked in the Chicago area for many years. And about a year or so ago, I joined Representative Davis in his office as a congressional fellow. And I'm happy to be here. I'm going to try and answer your questions if I can.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I see Miss Martha is stopping by saying good evening to everyone. So is Curtis Jones. Curtis Jones is here saying good evening to everyone. I see that we have the urologist of the stars that's here with us that keeps men's health on target. That's our very own Dr. Terry Mason, and we will not be discussing chicken wings tonight. Go right ahead, Dr. Mason.
Well, good evening, and I thank the Congressman for creating this forum and you to making it happen. And I look forward to being able to answer your questions this evening.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I want to say hey to Yolanda Williams, who is here. Hi to Angela Underwood, who is here just as well. And we're going to say hey to Dr. James Miller, the guy who says that I threaten him to be here all the time, but he is definitely here to introduce himself to the panel. Go right ahead, Dr. Miller.
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to be here tonight, and we thank the Congressman for continuing to have this format that we can inform the community about health situation and try to help improve the health care of the people of the community. So thanks for having us, and we're glad to be able to answer any question that we can.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I want to say hey to my cousin, Mary Ballinger, who is here on this evening. I see that Mary is here and she has stopped in to share her questions because she knows that true health is wealth. Next.
Did she freeze?
Yes,
she froze.
Medication. I might have Dr. Tony Hampton. Why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. I'm excited. Again, Congressman Davis, appreciate the opportunity to share a message of healing. I'm excited because it was 79 degrees today. And man, unfortunately I was working, but I sat by the window all day, excited that spring is here. And just excited because spring brings the excitement for the year, the spring, the summer, so all those folks out there have been thinking about doing those things to better their lives. What better time than now? So hopefully we'll incentivize you guys with some information and inspire you to get out, take your walks, and enjoy this beautiful weather. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Infectious disease specialist, but he really thinks he's a part-time chef just as well like that Dr. Tony Hampton. That's our very own Dr. Pete Thomas.
Hey guys, happy to be here, happy to share. Looking forward to exciting conversations from my colleagues. And again, I want to thank Congressman Davis for creating this forum for us. Nikki, thank you for working so hard behind the scenes.
Oh, wow. And to the vanguard of healthcare, the one who definitely tells us each and every day that health is.
Well, I guess you kind of froze up on us for a second, Nikki, but that's all right because we know that you will warm up and we know that you will be back. But I guess I had such a delightful weekend. Since I last talked to this group, I've had the opportunity to talk with the President of the United States advisor on health and health issues. And one of the things that we said to him was that we need to try and collect as much data as we can collect in terms of individuals and their health status and the treatments that they receive so that programmatic efforts can be developed based on the experiences and needs of different population groups. And that if we don't have the information, if we don't know, then it's more challenging to develop that. But I really started Saturday off over at one of the local park district facilities where once again we were providing vaccinations to people in the Garfield Park community. And they were walking over from their homes and walking down the street, and they didn't have to drive by or drive through. They were just walking over from the community where they live. And so once again, we want to say thanks to all of the health providers who were volunteering their efforts. We were doing this pretty much in collaboration with the head of the Chicago West Side branch, NAACP, Carl Brinson, and other staffers there, and with staff members who work for the Chicago Park District, who were helping to make sure that people had access and the opportunity. I don't know how many people we have directly been engaged with, but before we end, I hope Nikki will give us that information in terms of how many individuals we can pinpoint that we have been directly engaged with who have been able to get vaccinated or get the vaccination. I also want to commend the Food and Drug Administration because, J&J is back in style. That is Johnson and Johnson. Mm-hmm. They've done the research, they've done the work, they've done the analysis, and they have concluded that we can go back to distributing and making use of the Johnson and Johnson vaccine. I was able to visit over the weekend just so many outstanding things. Sunday, I was under the viaduct over on Chicago Avenue and Albany, where Reverend Walter Jones and a group of advocates for the homeless were having another one of their patented demonstrations and providing services to homeless people in the city of Chicago. That is a homeless village. And if you've ever got time or you ever got something that you want to share with somebody else, you got something to give away, you got something you don't need, or something you think somebody else could use, just drive by the homeless village over there on Chicago Avenue and Albany Street. where people are living under the viaduct. And I'm sure that they are delighted that it was 79 degrees today. I think if we are delighted, I guarantee you that they are happier than we are that it was 79 degrees. They didn't have to worry about being cold. They could come from under them little old tent-like things that they've got. They didn't have to have any kerosene heaters, any of those things. And so it just forces us to be reminded of how fortunate we really are without sometimes knowing it. I also had the opportunity to participate in the homegoing of one of our real active revolutionaries who helped generate the idea that there could be a place at the University of Illinois for Dr. Terry Mason to go to school and become a physician. And that's Buzz Palmer. Buzz passed away, he was 84 years old. But one of the reasons that the University of Illinois trains more Black doctors than any other medical schools in America, with the exception of Howard University and Meharry, is because people of the likes of Buzz Palmer came along, and Buzz used to run something called ComPran, Comprehensive Research and Development Corporation, at the same time that I ran an agency called the West Side Health Planning Organization. And as a result of Dr. Andy Thompson and others, Dr. Leonidas Berry and other folks, we were able to push the University of Illinois to the point of opening up a little bit, of finding ways to allow African Americans to get into medical school, go to medical school, and graduate and become the Terry Masons of the world and become the other physicians that we see. So we were very pleased that Buzz was transitioning, and that so we continue to send out good vibes to his wife, Dr. Alice Palmer, who is a former state senator from the state of Illinois, but also a college professor at Northwestern University, also a writer and author and everything. So I've just had a great weekend. I mean, I woke up Sunday morning listening to Dr. Mason, as I oftentimes do on Sundays, and that was kind of my church for the day. I got a medical sermon. He and Dr. Britt, my homeboy from Arkansas, who sometimes is with him. And so to think that Dr. Britt come from down there in the land of opportunity and he got a chance to go to medical school, it just means that people can do that. And so it's good to be with all of you today, and let's get it on.
Sure thing, Congressman. So it actually appears by you giving us the information to remove barriers and open it up into going into hard-hit communities, and also removing the barrier of those who aren't technologically savvy and having to make the appointments and allowing the walk-up to happen. We've actually touched the arms of 8,192 people within the number of events that we have done. And we have a few more planned. So this isn't just it for us. We're continuing to add those numbers. Want to say hey to Virginia Knight, who is here, who says good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How is everybody today? Fine, and thank you. To Linda Johnson, who is here, to Dorothy Murphy, who is here, to Melanie Melanie Winston, who is here. Hey, Melanie Nell. To Rosetta Guy, who is here. Once
You
again,
say Rosetta Guy?
Rosetta Guy is here, Congressman. She says, thank you, Congressman Danny K. Davis.
Okay.
Rosetta is here. So, Dr. Hampton, you have some comments that you'd like to share at this time?
Yeah, I think it's important that we, speak a little bit about Johnson & Johnson, because it's kind of like the question of the day, right? It's the elephant in the room. And I was blessed to speak at a church on Saturday morning, Life Church, and love, just getting a chance to get in front of God's people and share messages of healing. But so during that interaction, I did speak a little bit about Johnson & Johnson. We all know it was the third vaccine that was authorized, and then things happened, and the initial reports was that 6.8 million doses had been given, and 6 people developed cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, real fancy words that the doctors use, but essentially you got a clot inside the brain, and as the arteries go into the brain and then they leave out with veins in between, you'll have these sinuses, and if you get a clot there, it'll block the blood from going any further. They later found out that it was about 15 cases, and so you got 15 out of 6.8 million. It tended to affect women. It tended to affect people who were obese. It tended to affect younger folk. And so, and it tended to occur within 6 to 15 days. So, and when you think about something getting blocked in your head, a blood vessel, it's going to give you a headache. It may affect your vision, and it may give you stroke-like symptoms and maybe even a seizure. So that's what happened. They diagnosed this stuff with like MRIs, and they got something called the MRV, where they look at the vein. But the bottom line is, what does that really mean? Well, you had about only 5% of all the dosages that were given of all the vaccines combined were actually of Johnson & Johnson. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. If you got 1.9 cases in a million, that's your risk. And it sounds really scary, but I'll give you an idea of why it shouldn't be too scary. Another thing about this disease that's different is that the platelets are low. And it's weird because all of us docs know that platelets make clots. So how in the heck are you going to have low platelets and still have clots, right? It's kind of a paradox. And they think there was some type of antibody response. And it's related. And heparin can actually induce low platelets as well. There's a syndrome with heparin. So that's why when you've heard in the news that you shouldn't use heparin to treat it, because it can actually make it worse. And another thing I wanted to tell you guys is that the mechanism that we use to make this vaccine is with a vector, adenovirus vector that carries it into your body, and you make an antibody. Well, that's the same thing AstraZeneca uses. And although we're not using that in the US, that approach is apparently the commonality that makes AstraZeneca slightly higher risk for thrombosis as well. And they're using that in other countries. So bottom line is, I wanted to say all that to put things in perspective. And the perspective I wanted to share is the following. When you think about, my first perspective is, how likely is this to happen if you are in a position where that's the vaccine that's available to you? And the reality is, it's 0.18 chances out of 100,000, right? So that's not even 1%. So I want to start there, and then I want to say, what's the significance of thrombosis in the general population? And if you think about the general population, it's 0.5%. In other words, the chances of you getting a clot in the general population is higher than getting a clot from the vaccine, which is a perplexing thought. Number two, if you look at folk who are having babies, their chances are 10 to 20 in 100,000, not 0.18, but 10 to 20. And if you're on birth control, it's 2.7 to 40 out of 100,000. In other words, if you're having a baby, you're on birth control, you're in the general population, let me say the worst one. If you get COVID, your chances are about 20 in 100,000. So the point I'm trying to make is that when you're given choices, and let's just say the only choice you have is to not get a vaccine versus get Johnson & Johnson, I would encourage everybody to get Johnson & Johnson. Now, of course, there are other things you need to think about. You got to talk to your doctor, look at your individual risk. And I just want to say that I want to encourage everybody to understand those numbers. It's really like, the chances of getting sick from this vaccine is like getting struck by lightning. And the good news is, regardless of what you think, you got some other options regardless. So I think the message that all my colleagues would say, if you're nervous about that and those stats don't mean nothing to you, you got Moderna and you got Pfizer. So I just wanted to encourage everybody, don't let this information cause what we call vaccine hesitancy, because last week I lost a 38-year-old healthcare professional who just happened to have poorly controlled asthma, diabetes, and hypertension, and just gone. COVID is a real serious disease. And and honestly, I've had patients say they don't want the vaccine, but they fail to understand that the actual disease is worse. So I just wanted to encourage people listening. I just wanted to start us off with that because it made me really nervous when they started, kind of this vaccine hesitancy kicked in. And I just want to make sure that we are aware that this is still the right thing to do. And I'm very happy that the government paused to get the additional information so that we would know what to do if we face this a patient with this condition.
Hey, Dr. Hampton, thanks so much for bringing out the low incidence of the vaccine and its etiology with the blood clots, and how it's more common for you to get a blood clot in just a random situation than it is for you to get it after having the vaccine. The other point that you mentioned was the difference between Johnson & Johnson using the vector, the adenovirus, as opposed to Moderna and Pfizer using the messenger RNA. So even if people are still overly concerned about that, if you're really concerned about it, then just do the messenger RNA vaccine, which is the Moderna and the Pfizer one. But thanks a lot. That was a really good point.
Great. This is simply awesome. We got a quick question about the vaccine. So Mary Ballinger says, so when I got my first and second Pfizer vaccine, my sinuses seem to have been really affected. Is this a normal reaction?
Yeah, I think people have to realize that the point of the vaccine is to ignite the immune system. And so when you have those reactions, that is your assurance that your immune system has been ignited, and it is in full effect now, ready to recognize any foreign invader. And in particular, the foreign invader they're looking for is the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And so while it doesn't feel very well right in the immediate time period, it usually goes away within 48 hours. But yeah, it's exactly what you should expect. Now, every person is different. I was explaining this to one of my patients today. Every medication that you take is different. Every medication, it has a list of side effects, right? But when you put that medicine in an individual person, it has its own effect for that person. So both me and my wife got vaccinated. We're both doctors, and we had no side effects. Go figure. But it doesn't mean the next person may have some soreness on their arm. The next person may have fever, soreness, nasal congestion. So, but just be assured that your immune system is being ignited at that point.
Sound like you're saying that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. It is. It is. Thank you, Congressman. I'm long-winded.
Bonnie Smith says, thank you, Dr. Hampton. Angela Underwood says, it is now being reported that over 5 million people are opting out of getting their second shot. Although they got the first shot, what are the health consequences here for them?
Well, the big health consequences is that they are that because their vaccination is incomplete, they don't have that 95% or 94% protection that the people who got both doses. And so the consequences is if you don't take the full dose, you don't have the protection that one would expect if you did.
So one of the ways of putting that in perspective is, of all those people who got vaccinated and got 2 vaccinations, only 5% after being vaccinated contracted COVID, and virtually nobody got sick. So if you skip that second dose, you really increase your chances of getting COVID and potentially getting seriously ill.
Mm-hmm.
And let me add that we have an obligation to protect not only ourselves, but our families and our community. And so it's not unreasonable to expect that some people won't get their second dose in a timely fashion. Things happen, you travel, you miss your appointment. I mean, every vaccine, if we give shingles or any other vaccine, there's a certain percentage of people that don't get their second dose in a timely fashion. Hopefully there was logical reasons, but the thing we worry about is we need to get to herd immunity, right? We've been here using that term. And so we really want to do a better job. If you think about what's going on in India, for example, they, and it's for a different reason, but they kind of, once the vaccine became available, people became very laxed about it. And they kind of cut down on their mask wear, and they had these large celebratory events. I'm still seeing stuff like that in the United States, and now they have a crisis. And all we're doing is giving the vaccine more time to mutate. So we just don't want to be so nice to the vaccine. We want to, the neighborhood I grew up in, I can give you the address. We took them out. We didn't give them a second chance. I mean, take them out while you got a chance, because if you give him any thought that he got a chance against you, and Dr. Pete and my brothers on the panel, you know what I'm talking about. Don't ever let the enemy think they got a chance against you, right? And so you have to so we cannot put our guards down and get lax about this. We need to continue the things we're doing. And I think that all of those things are going to give us a fighting chance. All you got to do is look and see what's going on in India. And we are absolutely at risk for the exact same thing happening. So that should make us all nervous, because if we start getting all these mutations that really figure out this vaccine, we're going to be back where we started.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things I want to add to that is that this is also the reason why we're working hard. And even those individuals who've gotten their vaccination, we want you to work as well to get people who are not vaccinated, because ultimately, if we do not reach herd immunity in a fairly reasonable period of time, then we get the mutations, and who knows what we develop? Will we get a virus that is now resistant to the vaccine? So the whole idea here is that we have an opportunity to squish this and to control it, and we need to do it as quickly as possible, as opposed to just having it to hang around for long enough period to be able to mutate and to change it and become resistant to the thing that is effective now.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if I'm ever coming out of my mask, because even though, seriously, pneumonia and flu, I have heard no numbers about either of those. So I don't know if I'm ever coming out of my mask. I don't. And it is getting warm out. So people who know me personally know that I will barbecue and invite a few people over. Understand you need to have your vaccine card when you come to my door. And I will still be taking temperatures, and you still need to have your mask, because I have to stay healthy. There's a question here that says, if you skip your second appointment off Instagram, what's the maximum amount of time that you have before you have to start the process over?
Yeah, I actually don't know what the answer to that is. I can tell you that I know the CDC said that you have up until 4 weeks for Moderna and 5 weeks for for Pfizer, which is a week beyond. And so I think what's important for people to realize is that all of these recommendations were done as a result of the study that was done. Mm-hmm. So they're not saying that you will not achieve the 94, 95% immunity, but they're just saying for the people that were in the study that got the 95% immunity or 94.1% immunity, they had their vaccine within these time periods. So it doesn't mean that we know that beyond that it doesn't work. It just means that hasn't been studied yet.
And I'll add, Doug, I'm sure, Dr. Doug, I remember there were other countries that were only doing one dose, and then they would just do one dose for a while, because some of the studies were showing that you're actually gonna, even if you wait a little bit, you actually may get a bigger effect once you. So So if they allow you to get that second dose late, I wouldn't worry about it. I think in those countries where they did that, they just wanted to get more people vaccinated with one dose as opposed to, So I think that usually when we have a second dose scenario, and this is a new vaccine, the bigger issue is not getting it too soon. But if you give it enough of a gap between dosages, your immune system, it's almost like a booster in a way. And if you wait a little longer than you should, it's probably not going to have a negative effect, except that you've delayed getting to the level of protection that you desire to get to.
Great. So, Pete, I am excited to hear about epigenetics. Is that what it was?
Yeah, epigenetics.
Go right ahead. You have the floor.
Yeah.
The floor is all yours. Right now, this is like the Grammys. I'm rolling out the red carpet for you.
Yeah. So epigenetics isn't a new concept, but it's like a remix. It's a remix. And so we know that your genes are influenced by your environment and your behavior. So any disease process is not just a matter of, oh, my mom or my dad had high blood pressure, or my mom or my dad had diabetes. It's always your behavior plus your environment, right? So that's why you have people that are that have a low genetic risk for something, and they'll come up with lung cancer. Well, how did that happen? It was possibly their behavior, meaning maybe smoking, or their environment, meaning an environment that had carcinogens in it that put them at a higher risk for genetic mutation that caused a cancer to happen with these patients. So the whole point about epigenetics in relationship to COVID is that your behavior, your ability to protect yourself, and your genes, for that matter, and your environment is critical, almost more critical than the gene itself. So we should be very mindful of the environment. So that's the same thing you mentioned, Nikki, and that is, your behavior, your ability to say, look, I still like to entertain people by the house with the barbecues, but we're going to do it differently now. It's going to be a little bit different than what folks are used to. It's not going to be 20 people at my house. It may be 7. Okay, we're going to all have our vaccine cards, right? We're going to all so we might be in the yard instead of in the house. So those kind of adjustments can really go a long way in terms of protecting us from COVID, but also from just chronic disease. Dr. Mason mentions all the time, way before COVID was taking us out, heart disease is taking out 800,000 people a year. And so what do we know about heart disease? We know that sedentary lifestyle, high fat, low fiber diets, right? So it's your behavior plus your environment that will impact a genetic transformation or genetic mutation. That's all, Nick.
So, Tony, you look like you want to say something.
No, I was thinking about my patient again, Nikki, my 38-year-old, and hopefully just saying that 38 is not a HIPAA violation, but I just want to, hopefully that's not too much information.
No.
But I thought about this patient, and I thought about Brother Pete's comments, and So when you think about epigenetics, everything Brother Peter said is true, but I think about that patient's diet. And I guarantee you, I mean, you'll love this, Pete. And I don't know. It's the funniest thing. I had a patient, I told her that I had, she works at the school. And I said, I remember when I was in school and they had those donuts wrapped in those little plastic bags. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you warm them donuts up and it was like God came down. And even though I don't eat that, it's in my bag right now. So Dr. Mason, I'm sorry, but that donut gonna get ate. Now I bring it up to say this. This brother always didn't eat well. He would have stuff like that in his bag. So that's number one. That he had, recently lost a family member. So psychologically, he was sick, dealing with that loss. I don't think he had a lot of social outlets other than just working all the time. Clearly was not compliant with medication. So when you think about all the things that could have been done better, all of these things, I believe in my heart that if those things were done better and the asthma was better and the blood pressure was better and the diabetes was better, this patient would still be here. So my point is, you need to arm yourself. You can't change your mom and your daddy. You may not be able to change it. If you're in the hood, you're probably gonna be there for a while until things get better. Let's just keep it real. So if you can't change some things, focus on what you can change. And that's why Brother Pete brought this up, because there are things in your environment that will impact your health. And if you take better care of those things you can control, you will greatly increase. Just like we talked about earlier, some people get this stuff and it don't phase them, and other people get it and takes them out. And a lot of times that's because what kind of body did you have to receive the virus? Were you ready to fight the war, or were you kind of vulnerable? And that's why so control your controllables and focus on those things. And that way we won't have these sad stories to share.
So Dr. Mason looks as if he's thinking and that he wants to share something, but he's really in deep thought. So I'm wondering if you got to share now. Know that I will only be barbecuing vegetables.
Nikki, we took up so much air last week, so I was just trying to allow others to have an opportunity to speak more than they did last week. But I will say that, epigenetics is not new. It's something that has been around for a long time. And there's epigenetics all the time. It's happening all the time. We don't know how the processed foods we're eating are going to influence us from a genetic point of view. We don't know how, and this is why there are people who had the movement to try to get fruits and vegetables that were pesticide free and so on and so forth, because we don't know. We know in some cases how we know that the pesticide Roundup ended up creating some issues with people, having people get lymphomas, non-Hodgkin's lymphomas. So there are things, and that's why I am always going to be talking about the role that food plays, is because it's one of the things that all of us do every day, and most of us do more than once a day. And a lot of us are eating things that we don't even know what they are. We're eating manufactured stuff that is not even a true derivative of the thing it was made from necessarily. And we don't know what that's going to do to us, which is why when we talk about this, we try to talk about eating things as close as you can get them in nature as possible. And even then, we have some reservations. So you say, well, Doc, what can I eat? I say, well, you eat what you can get to eat. But I'm just giving you some parameters. You mentioned, Pete, heart disease. You talk about COVID, we lose over 1,000,001 people every year before COVID. You know, everybody all excited about COVID, but people and black folks were still among the majority of those people in a high number, not necessarily a majority, but we had a lot of death in our communities from this before COVID, from things like asthma. And I'm sure Dr. Miller and Dr. Hampton and other doctors on the panel here, asthma takes us out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we've got young people now that we have people that are obese. We got to put a bigger O in obese now, because people now are bigger than they have ever been. I have a cartoon and a presentation called The De-Evolution of Man. We're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and not just the men, but the women too. And that's going to create issues for them that I'm sure Dr. Hampton, Dr. Pete, Dr. Graham, Dr. Miller, you've all seen what's happening. But the real scare is what's happening when I see these kids these days.
Oh yeah.
Some of these children, oh my goodness. I mean, they don't even have a chance because they're so morbidly obese before they're 12. So there's a lot that we have to do, and we want to worry about a vaccine that Dr. Hampton greatly put in perspective. We're talking about 6 cases out of what, 6 million? 6 cases out of 6 million. You're going to trip out about that, but you're not going to even think about that stuff that you're eating that carries, when you add up the inflammation and the obesity and all the other stuff that Dr. Pete and Dr. Hampton and Dr. Graham and Dr. Miller see every single day. And for the men, I'll stop with this. It is a killer of your erections. So if you, and also there's good data now that talks about eggs and milk as it relates to prostate cancer. So, you know, and we already know that the International Agency for Research on Cancer has already put out about red meat, what it does. So I don't have anything else to say. I just got to always remind us, I don't have anything new. There's nothing new. Everything I've talked about, or will probably talk about, is been out there. And I just hope that we would stop majoring on the minors.
Yeah, Dr. Mason, I think you're absolutely correct, because, and I was talking to a patient today, and it's interesting because it's like your pastor used to say, like whatever you feed is going to grow. So if you feed fear is what grows. And so people, they build up this fear. They want to create a boogeyman, right? And the boogeyman is the vaccine, the vaccine. But never mind what you just ate an hour ago. Who's the boogeyman then? You know what I mean? That's not the vaccine. That's you. And we need to hold that mirror up. I got one in my office. I just hand it to my patient. I say, you want to know who the boogeyman? Look in there. That's right. That's right. And I tell people, I can't out-prescribe your lifestyle.
Yeah. We
ain't got enough medicine. I can't do it. And so I'm saying, if we're going to create an all-star team, I'm like, you're Michael Jordan. You're the star. So if you create that image where, and it's not blame, and I think sometimes we have to be careful because some people feel overwhelmed, right? And so we have to say, look, I'm here to support you. We got great medicines. We've come a long way in terms of medical technology. But even with all of the technology that we have, it doesn't outweigh what you can do. And so I think it's important that we empower patients. This forum is empowering. It lets patients know, I got 15 minutes with you. You got 365 days in a year with you. Now that could work in your benefit, or it could work against you. But I think it's important for us, this forum, to share with people, to say you have more power than you think, and to believe and have faith. I'm gonna go, Pastor Miller. I'm going to church now. Okay. So if you believe and have faith, in your higher creator, your God, that he can do anything, right? Including taking that donut out your bag. including have you make better decisions for yourself, right? And those things matter more than the fear of the vaccine and what it's going to do. And I don't know about that. And it don't seem right to me. And well, there's a whole lot of things don't seem right, but you're not scared of those things.
Yeah, you ain't scared of that charbroiled barbecue. We know that in all those little dark marks that are on that barbecue or on that hot dog or on that sausage are polyaromatic hydrocarbons that we know cause cancer. But you ain't scared of that. You're not, and I don't mean to beat up on us individually, because a lot of this stuff is cultural. A lot of this stuff has economic roots, and a lot of this has to do with our food industry. There's a food industry that is purposely pouring out more and more food products. They're not food themselves. They're not real. They're things that are being made. Whenever you look at the ingredients and you can't pronounce none of them, you probably shouldn't put that in your mouth.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that we really have to. What we are talking about is that we really have to get back to helping people to understand better, and that's simple thing to say, but it's also deprogramming, getting rid of some of these things that people have assumed to be the right thing to do that is not the right thing for them to do, and also to recognize that there's a constant feeding, there's a constant advertisement of things because the purpose of advertising is to sell and to make money. And it ain't about really keeping you healthy. It's about getting you to buy it and generally to create an appetite for you to consume. So part of that process is that we really, beyond, this is going again, beyond COVID, we really got to work hard on getting people to spend more time with re-educating people and getting folks to get an understanding of what they're doing and how and what it's doing to them. And it's difficult because if you've done something all your life and for someone to suddenly to tell you that you can't do that, and it's very difficult, but it is necessary and need to be done. And so we must really figure out ways and put forth the effort. We can't just say because it's hard we're not going to try to do it. We have to do it despite the difficulty.
And I know we laugh and have fun here, and it's so true. But the Lord really will take things from you if you ask Him. Because I am piggybacking off Pete just a little. Because I literally wrestle with potato chips. I do. I can tell the truth on me. I wrestle with potato chips.
Ain't it?
It is. And I asked the Lord, I said, listen, Jesus, just take the taste of these jalapeno potato chips away from me for just a little while. Just take it out of my mouth. Take it out of my mouth long enough for me to be able to do it without it. And He did. I can walk down the potato chips aisle now and I'm not shaking. I'm not. I'm okay. I'm past the potato chips and Tony, brace yourself for this one. I'm even past the pineapple. I'm past it. I'm past it. And anybody who knows me know I ate a pineapple almost a day. I'm past it. I'm past it. So I mean, you have to be sincere and you got to ask Him, and He definitely will do it. And for the 17 of you all who text me when the dog was barking, trust me, if it was silver and gold, I would admit that it was silver and gold. It was not silver and gold this time, but that dog was really agreeing with his father because his father was on target. So that dog was just sharing his, and now y'all want to laugh. He was sharing his thoughts that his dad was on target. These dogs know what we're talking about. They know. Every time Dr. Mason said hot dog, Silver left the room because they don't want to talk about that. So we have to ask. We definitely have to ask. Natalie King says, could you share more about the dangers of barbecue if grilling food is safe? Charcoal versus gas, any differences?
I think what I mentioned was the aromatic hydrocarbons that are formed when you char meat. Doesn't really matter what the meat is. If you've got, whether it's a hamburger or a hot dog or a steak, it really doesn't matter. But we know, doing work in the prostate cancer world, we learned a lot about what these grill marks are, because these are areas where the rail or the implement that the meat has been placed on is really heated by the flame underneath that chars the meat. And we like that flavor. And you got to look at it. Why do we lead everybody in all the diseases except the weird ones, the weird genetic ones? But if you think about most of the common diseases, Black folks lead it. I mean, as maybe not in terms of numbers, but in terms of rates. And a rate is different than a number, just a number. So we got to really think about this thing. And you got to understand that it's not all our fault, because these potato chips, now I'm a potato chip junkie myself from one point of view. I mean, certain things, but you know what it is? We've been trained to want that salty, crunchy, slightly oily taste. And they have built an entire industry in those products, whether it's potato chips, popcorn, whatever it is. You get this slightly salty, crunchy, and oily taste. And that's how they built a whole snack food industry. When I was growing up, and probably when Dr. Miller was growing up, we didn't have hamburgers and stuff. First of all, it wasn't no McDonald's to go to. Mm-hmm. Any hamburger that we had to get, we had to cook it, which meant we had to go to the grocery store. We had to buy the ground. Am I right, brother, Dr. Miller? We had to get that ground beef, and my mama, to stretch it, would put crackers and onions and all kind of stuff in those. They call it the Salisbury steak today, but
that's right.
But that's what we did. And we didn't have as much of this stuff as we did then. We didn't have it. There was not as much, nowadays, we don't even know what we're eating because it's in a box and it's frozen and you throw it in a microwave and, you nuke it and then you eat it and you don't know what the hell you just ate. So we don't cook. To Dr. Hampton's point, we need to go back to cooking, because there's something that happens when you go through the process of unwrapping and preparing the food and seasoning it properly and doing all the things you have to do. It's an experience. It just shouldn't be something you just open your mouth and throw it in there. So yes, these polyaromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, are the things that are on these. When you eat these hot dogs or burgers or whatever it is, those black marks, we know that the chemical change that's happened that created that is carcinogenic.
Yes.
Hey, Dr. Mason, correct me if I'm wrong, but just so that I'm clear, if you're grilling and you're not cooking at that high heat where the fire is burning the meat, then your risk is less than if you're cooking that meat where you are getting those black marks on the food. So I'm saying, like, there's some people that don't grill with that high heat, and I'm one of them. Say, I like a low heat on my grill. So am I right that your risk is lower for those?
If you don't see the black marks, your risk is lower. Okay, not zero, but low.
Right. Yeah. And so the reason why I'm asking that question is because I think sometimes people hear all these risks for cancers and think that they're all equal, but in many cases that's not true, right? Because let's say family history of prostate cancer might be higher on the totem pole than, let's say, heterocyclic amines, which, let's be honest, like, how much grilled food would you need, not just grilled, but that high char meat would you need to eat in order to equal the risk of someone else that has a high family history? I don't know. You understand what I'm saying?
One of the things I always say real quick about family history is one thing that we don't take is the family dietary history. And what happens is folk eat the same way. And so a lot of this stuff is not because of anything genetic. It's because the insult to the epigenetics, to your point, are the same, because the people pass down from generation to generation the eating patterns.
Okay. I agree.
And I'll add that it's not just the amount of heat necessarily, because that definitely is part of it. It's also how long you cook, and I know in communities of color, we like our meat well done. We want it so done that it's hard when I want my chicken fried hard, right? So the harder you fry it, the more you cook it, it actually does increase your risk. And then another thing that I learned in school is that if you marinate your meat, that does reduce the risk for cancer as well, because it just does, it reduces those toxic substances that occur. So marinating, don't cook as long, and obviously don't char your food. So again, if you're gonna eat this stuff, you got to prepare it in such a way where you reduce your risk. And really throughout your life, all you're trying to do is mitigate risk. And you're trying to find ways to, if you're going to do one behavior, how are you going to mitigate it? Ideally you do everything well, but sometimes you have to try to mitigate the risk. So that's how I take make my patient's journey practical. And I know I can't convince them to do everything I want them to do. So I just try to mitigate it as much as possible.
No, I agree with you, Tony. I think that we can't have people do, it's not one of those. It didn't happen that way for me. I mean, it didn't happen that way for me. It doesn't happen that way for 99% of the people. It is a process, and everybody's process may be slightly different, but very, very, very few people can stop something just like that. I think, and that's not what we're saying. We want to give you the information so you can make better decisions about what you do. And hopefully over time, begin to do a lot less of the things that are bad for you that we're talking about, and more things that we know are good for you. So it's not all or none, and it's not all today or tomorrow.
That's correct. Yeah, and I think the other thing about this is that as people, we want to get people started. And the thing is with most things, it become a little bit easier. Once you begin to change, you begin to lose some of the desire for certain foods. And even sometimes once you stop eating something and go back to it, actually, you sort of don't like the taste anymore. So the whole idea is to get the concept and start working on that concept, and with the idea that, I'm going to go more towards, a healthier diet than I am going to just continue with the things that I know that is causing me harm and causing me various disease process, or giving me increased risk of these disease. So I think the process is getting people started and giving them the information that they need, so that it empowers them to do better.
So are you saying that if I eat this donut that my patient gave me, I'm not going to like it?
If you haven't, you know what? This is what I found out about sugars and sweets, is that I used to really love them, but I found out when I cut down and almost stopped eating them that that's a lot of things that I was eating, I found it's just too sweet. I just don't. It doesn't satisfy my taste bud anymore.
Well, I know I'm a low carb doctor, but I'm gonna have to test. This is an experiment. We got to test the hypothesis.
Well, the other thing people say, in my family, they just all big boned it. Mm-hmm. So I said, you ever seen a fat skeleton? We need to stop with some of this foolishness that we keep talking about, big boned. What the hell does that mean? There is no such thing of being big boned. It's what you got on them bones that make you big. So we just need to tell the truth so we can stop this. Well, she just, we take that after her mama. Her mama had big bones. No, her mama didn't get no big bones for them weigh 300 pounds. I always didn't do that.
What medical school did you go?
We just got I know this is funny to many people, but I'm using comedy, the comedy part of it, to make the point. You know, and it's we do this because we love people, and we want to see everybody, as somebody said earlier in the scripture, to live life and more abundantly. How do we do that? How do we do that if we and if I want to really go to, I could go right to Genesis 1:29 if I wanted to.
Go there, Bishop.
Don't do that right now, but I could go there. So I'm just saying it is important for us, and the reason all of us are here is because we're trying to do the best we can to make a message palatable. Some way I say stuff may not be palatable to people. Then Dr. Hampton says it another way. Dr. Pete or Dr. Graham or Dr. Miller says it a different sort of way. So it's all in love. We only do this because we love our people and we love to see us thrive, and we want us to live life more abundantly. And unfortunately, we see too many, and Dr. Pete and probably you, Dr. Tony, y'all see this stuff firsthand. When you see teenagers that are already 60, 70 pounds overweight, you know that trajectory.
Yeah.
When you see young girls that are marked massively overweight and they haven't maybe even started their menses yet, you know that trajectory. And we know what's going to happen to them. And we're just being emphatic about we have to help save people from themselves and the vestiges of what the marketers are trying to get people to do.
Well, my wife bought me some buttermilk the other day. So is it all right if I go home and have me some cornbread and buttermilk crumbled up?
My mama, my dad, my mama's from Little Rock, Arkansas. Now you can walk well. Of course, I saw more crumbled up buttermilk and cornbread when I was growing up than I'd ever see. You know?
It's still good.
I'm not a don't do. I'm just trying to give you information so you can make better choices for yourself. That's all we all trying to do. I ain't the food police.
Hey, Dr. Hampton, do you know if there is any data to support? I had a interesting conversation with a patient of mine today that African Americans, that the current BMI scale does not apply equally to us as opposed to other ethnicities. I was unaware of any data that supported that. So this gentleman felt like that, my BMI says this, but I'm in shape and I'm really not overweight. And I'm like, I don't think we have any data to support that, sir. But can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of the, if you think about a lot of the data we use in general is from the Framingham trials and studies, and a lot of that data is not necessarily representing all communities. So it is some truth to that. However, what we try to get people to do, I don't think there's this perfect weight per se. I mean, it gives you some guidance. Everything's a journey. So what I tell people is there are things that we can measure in your blood to see if you're healthy, right? So, and we call it, your metabolic markers, your markers of inflammation. So if I get a patient who is at a BMI of 40, I don't necessarily need her to get down to a 23 BMI. But if I can get that 40 down to 30 or to 29 and her metabolic markers become normal, her fasting insulin level is normal, her hemoglobin A1C, her diabetes test is normal, her triglycerides and her HDL, those cholesterol markers are normal. And then, we got fancier tests we can do. And what happens is if those markers become normal, I don't really need her to be a BMI of 22, 23, 24, so I think that's the angle I take, because man, her body's going to scream hallelujah when she does that. Because I had a patient today who only lost 7 pounds. When I saw that patient at the last visit, their blood pressure was like 158. They lost 7 pounds and their blood pressure was 138. This person was probably 70 pounds over that weight. You know, they needed to, in theory, lose. Your body is going to scream hallelujah when you start to make these gradual. And all she did is for 3 months made some changes that impacted her life. So I think if we can be on a journey with this and try to walk towards improving, you know, there's some truth that we don't have to be exactly where those guidelines say, but it does give us a guide. That's why they call them guidelines. There are guides, but they're not the gospel, right? And if we can get people to do that, we're okay.
Okay, thanks.
This is awesome. You know, Miss Martha says, my condolences for your patient, Dr. Hampton. And then we have Miss Johnson, who tells Dr. Pete, that she loves it and she loves his comments, but she also wants Dr. Hampton to know that you are going to eat that donut. So she says that you are going to eat that donut. That's what she said. You're going to
Eat it.
You know, Miss Johnson also says,
it's going to get heated up too.
She said, you all are helping me. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. You know, Angela Underwood agrees with Dr. Miller, and she talks about that we have to reprogram ourselves, our food, our taste. So she's talking about eating healthier and agreeing with Dr. Miller when he shared that with everyone. You know, Karen says that these are facts, true facts that we are sharing here on today. Kathleen Jackson says, thank you for the humor. I guess the humor eases the pain of sometimes what the truth is giving us. Yes, we love it, and we love you guys too. Preach on, Dr. Mason. Bishop, preach. I got the collection. I have the collection. So we are ready right here. Are pistachio nuts fattening? Which is a question here. But Angela Underwood says, you know, then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the earth and every tree that has fruit with the seed in it, Genesis 1:29. So that's your reader. You know, when the pastor would get up and he would tell somebody, read for me. Angela is your reader, Dr. Mason. She was reading it for you to make sure that she kept you on target. You know, as always, I know you guys are going to hate to hear me say this, and it has to come out every Monday night, but it's our time. So we're going to go around really quickly. We're just going to ask everyone, what is your until next Monday? Well, I'm going to share a little quick until next Monday, and I'm going to share it again on next Monday. That on Mother's Day, that's right, Mother's Day, our restaurants are only at a certain percentage, and we can't get out like we usually do. And we definitely want to make things just a little different. So we will be having a family fun, health informational day for a few hours on Sunday, that Mother's Day, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we'll be doing that at CoMed. We'll be doing it at CoMed Medical Center on, I think, what's the address to CoMed, Dr. Pete?
4259 South Berkeley. That's it's about 3 blocks east of Drexel.
So right there, we'll be in the parking lot outside with the DJ. We'll have gifts for mothers as they come by. And of course, you know that this will be a vaccine event. So it's a family fun vaccine event. So bring out all of your youth, 16 and above, to make sure that everyone can get their vaccine so we can all be healthy and once again reach that herd immunity that you have heard us talk about. We are removing those barriers for you to be able to get the vaccine. You can make an appointment or you can walk up. But we have some great community partners. We have Target, Walmart, Norm's Bistro. We have MacArthur's Restaurant. We have great community partners that will be there. We have a photographer that will be taking great pictures of some of the moms when you come past there. And we have raffles and great gifts that we're going to have for everyone. So please make sure that you come by on Mother's Day to CoMed parking lot where you can be healthy and turn that health into wealth. As we go around the table once again, Dr. Douglas Graham, your until next Monday.
So if you have to grill, a couple of things you can do to make it safer is use smaller pieces, make it lean, and if you can, pre-cook it in the microwave. So the less time on the grill, the safer it'll be for you.
Oh, wonderful. That's a great idea. Dr. Terry Mason, you're until next Monday.
Thank you, and know that everything that we try to do and say here is to help you. And we say it in a lot of different ways, but in all of it, again, it's all in love. And we thank you for listening. And we again thank Congressman Davis for giving us this forum. Thank you so much.
Dr. James Miller, you're until next Monday.
Obviously, every session we are here to talk about things that are going to make people healthier, give them a better quality to their life. And we want people to begin to think about that, to really think about how I can, so it's not just life, but it's the quantity and the quality of the life that's really important. I mean, you can live long, but if you're living a long life and you're not really, having a life that is enjoyable, then, it's a life of suffering. But we want you to have a life of pleasure, a life that you can enjoy. And so the things that we're talking about are things that hopefully will make life more enjoyable and more pleasurable for you.
All right, Dr. Tony Hampton, you're until next Monday.
I love my Line Brothers quote. I think I'm gonna steal it from you. He said, "You are the star. You're the Michael Jordan of your own team, of your own health." I love that quote. I'm stealing that for sure. I promise I'll be on a podcast talking about it. But I just wanted to say that I had a chance. Speaking of podcasts, I talked to a gentleman, Naveen, who he's like the wellness guy. He was with the Washington Wizards, and I asked him what's the secret to good health, and it was very familiar, and it reminds me of what Dr. Mason was saying. There's nothing new here. He said it's all about mindfulness, so you got to take care of your brain. He said it's about nutrition, and we talk about that every time we do this show. He talked about getting your body moving. So spring is here. We have no excuse. Get out and move that body. And then the last thing he said was sleep. And he felt that sleep was the most important thing. So so be the star of your team, like Brother Pete was saying. And don't do nothing special. You don't have to have special supplements, and you got to get the special warm-up suit. You don't have to do none of that. Take a walk. It's free. Sleep is free. All this stuff is free. So you can do this, and all you got to do is understand that if you do these things, your life will change, and then you'll change the life of your family because they will be influenced by the things you do. That's my final words for tonight.
Wonderful. We also want to say thank you to Trader Joe's and to Gift of Hope for all of the great things that they will be doing on Mother's Day over at CoMed Medical. And we will have some superheroes that will be out on that evening as well, that afternoon as well. And I understand that Dr. Pete may be, and you'll get this information on tomorrow, but you may be Batman for the day, the Batman superstar. So, yeah, Crystal's going to take care of you. So we have your cape and everything. So you're going to be Batman of the day.
Okay.
So Dr. Pete, you're until next Monday. Oh, we can't forget your Robin. Hey, Tony. All right, Dr. Pete.
Yeah, just listening to my colleagues, I think we got to take care of ourselves, get more sleep. And in the words of Bob Marley, everything's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. So relax. Doesn't mean don't do anything. It just means don't stress yourself out. And that, make good decisions for your health.
That's right. We have the Avengers. We have costumes for you all, Dr. Mason and Dr. Miller. We have great things in store for you all on Mother's Day. I'm sorry?
We ain't putting on no tights. That's out of the question.
And the Congressman will be Superman that day. So, Congressman, you're until next Monday with your Danny Davis Superman t-shirt that we have already ordered. Go right ahead.
Well, Mother's Day really was created for the promotion of peace. And the woman who really pushed it hard ultimately got a little peeved and kind of drew back a little bit from it. But Mother's Day still carries the connotation of serious respect for motherhood. I've got such a great tomorrow coming up. I have a conversation with the United States Secretary of Labor at 10 o'clock in the morning to just kind of say thanks to them for solving an unemployment compensation issue that we had in the state of Illinois. I also guarantee you that the president, in his State of the Union address, is going to spend a great deal of the time talking about health and talking about health care, even though he'll have to talk about a lot of other things. He's going to talk about health. The first phone call that I got this morning before 8:30, because I had an 8:30 town hall on reentry. We're celebrating reentry month and celebrating the fact that our second chance bill generated, since it was passed, more than $15 billion in 48 states throughout America. We're going to introduce another bill tomorrow morning with 3 United States senators, Senator Rob Portman from Ohio, Senator Peters from Michigan. And it's going to be to codify some of the legislative activity that we had generated to make it a part of the U.S. Department of Labor's activity, to codify it, to put it in the U.S. Code. And so we're very excited about that. I hope that at the Mother's Day event that we have gospel music, and one of my favorites is I've Got an Angel Watching Over Me. And it's a great song. The guy who wrote it and sings it also is an esteemed attorney. Of course, he ran for judge in the last election. He didn't make it, but he still got an angel watching over him. So I look forward to being out on Berkeley Mother's Day as we celebrate motherhood. And, you know, I think of my own mother, and we had such a great love affair that sometimes when I'm driving along in my car or something and just think about my dear, her name is Maisie Lee Davis, and I think about her when she passed away. My brothers and sisters and I got into a big argument about which one of us was her most favorite child. And so we woke my father up. He had gone to bed in the other room. So he got up and came out and said, I hear you all in there arguing about which one of you was Maz's favorite. He said, well, I got news for you. Wasn't none of y'all. It was me, because I knew it the longest. So Mother's Day is a great day. I just look forward to it. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for another wonderful evening of wit and wisdom. And I tell you, first call I got this morning was from a gentleman who said he was a dialysis patient, and he was upset about the way that they had been treating him where he got his dialysis, and the state had not investigated. I told him I would give that information to Nicole Harvey, and she would call and make sure that the state investigators come out there and investigate and find out why they've been treating them wrong. So thank you all. I look forward to next Monday, but I really look forward to tomorrow. Have a good evening, and it's a real pleasure. All right, I guess we lost Nikki, but that's all right. She's gone. Thank you.